Hey Kelly, this is a response to your Unit 2 discussion post. First and foremost, please make sure that you put in the question. Write the question again. You did that right the first time and you didn't include it this time. Uh, Now, luckily, this was pretty straightforward, pretty easy for me to find which one you were talking about. Presumably, Chapter 5, Question 6. What can a positivist researcher learn from an interpretive researcher? What can an interpretive researcher learn from a positivist researcher? But in the future, make sure that you do include uh, what chapter this comes from at least, and rewrite the question so I know exactly what it is, excuse me, that you are answering. I can't stress that enough. Just make sure you do that. Now, overall, your response, not bad. Couple of things I would say about this, though. Let's make sure that we don't paint with too broad of a brush in these questions. You do well when you say things like interpretive researchers believe that not all things can be answered within a laboratory setting. That's true to a certain degree, but interpretive theory does not necessarily believe that all reality is subjective, but rather that meaning making is subjective. In other words, how we think, react, and interpret our worlds as humans is not necessarily something that is conducive to positivist research methods. To put this another way, the idea that all humans, given a very specific set of circumstances or stimuli, will respond to those circumstances or stimuli in a very specific way, in the same way that, say, water boiling or an object falling is uniformly explainable in, say, physics. Uh, Interpretive researchers don't believe this. Natural science and social science differ in this respect. I would probably put it like this: that human beings, when we talk about reactions and meaning making, we aren't necessarily governed by pure reason, logic, and um, those things that natural science and positivist research look at. So that's where interpretive researchers come in and say, all right, so how can we investigate this crazy creature we call the human being in such a way as to make some sort of sense out of it, but while also recognizing that there is not necessarily a natural law that governs all of our decisions and how we interpret situations. Um, so it can be a bit iffy. Um, when you get into or paragraph 4, and you start talking about what each one can learn from each other, you do well. Not bad. Um, but I think you could be a bit more precise in your wording. You say sometimes things are not going to be exact or precise. Well, even in interpretive research, we certainly do have very specific guidelines governing our research processes, data analysis, and so forth and so on. So while sometimes what we are looking at is not necessarily something that is uniformly um, a natural law or natural science process, uh, we don't necessarily, as social scientists, subscribe or prescribe to the idea that it doesn't necessarily have to be exact or precise. We do still need to be exact and precise. Um, Perhaps beating a dead horse, but that is something that is very, very important. We can't just approach research willy nilly and say, but I'm an interpretive researcher. That's what I do. That is not what we do in interpretive research. I do completely agree, personally, with the idea that interpretive theorists could learn quite a bit or could benefit quite a bit from replication, more and more replication. So overall, not bad. I would just urge you to perhaps look for some more nuance, and use your words very precisely. Make sure that you are not painting with too broad of a brush here. Okay, and yeah, not bad overall.